are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by FanDuel. Sunday Night Football, Chiefs, Ravens. Chiefs are 3.5-point road favorites per FanDuel Sportsbook. The under, currently 35% of the bet, 71% of the money. The good news is I don't have to walk through this slate alone. I do have the Tilt Space boys with me. So Peter Overzet, Michael Leone. We did kind of go through our initial tilt of our week 2 slate. Had a live lineup that basically crashed and burned at the very end. But how are we doing, boys? It's been a couple minutes here. Pete, how are you?
It's good, man. I feel like, we're on the tilt space on ETR where that's kind of like our Twitter. We're like shit posting. And then I come here and I feel like I'm on LinkedIn. I'm ready to give the people the nuts on FanDuel.
Yeah, you like that? Like, I guess flip the switch like that, instant host mode there, like official, like talking through like FanDuel lines, all that good stuff. Like, Leone, take a lesson, man.
I'm still ready to tilt. I'm still on Twitter.
Love it. All right, so this is at least an interesting slate to talk about today. We have our KC at Baltimore game to go through here. Of course, we have Run the Sims. Pete is another member of our Run the Sims family. So no shocker here for anyone that's been following along with our single slate coverage this year. The quarterbacks look like some of the best MVPs on the board. But I will say this, there's a couple guys that at least seem to be in play, probably namely the KC guys, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. Pete, I know you're more focused on the showdown scene on DraftKings, but when you see something like this from Run the Sims, like that just tells you how different it is on both sites. Like that's a lot of blue, man, and it's all quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking through all of the most frequent top winning lineups, 67 Patrick Mahomes lineups, 55 Patrick Mahomes lineups. There's Lamar Jackson. I have to scroll and scroll and scroll to find an optimal lineup that does not involve a quarterback. And I'm still scrolling. I finally found one, Joe, Travis Kelce. But yeah, it's hard to get away from the quarterbacks here.
It's a tough scene. Leone, have you done much, I guess, looking into the FanDuel stuff? Like, I got to the point where I felt like if I just committed to not playing quarterbacks at MVP for like the entire season, that it might come out ahead. But some of the prize pools are a little bit smaller for these slates anyways. So I think there might be enough people not playing quarterback captains or MVPs that maybe going the other way would have been smarter. So I'm conflicted, man. I'm not really sure what to do with these now.
Yeah, I'm looking at our projections that establish the run, and I mean it's tough. We've got Mahomes and Lamar for around 24 FanDuel points. Then Tyreek at about 18.5, Kelce at about 16, and you look at the ceiling on Kelce and Hill. Like the ceiling on Kelce we have for his projection, barely gets you to Mahomes and Lamar. A really higher ceiling on Tyreek Hill just because half PPR scoring benefits him a little bit more the way he can get there on big plays. But it's really tough. I think I would play Tyreek Hill if I were avoiding Mahomes, but I don't know if that, to your point, even though people are going to play a ton of Mahomes and Lamar at the MVP spot, I don't think that Derrick Henry's in for touchdown number 3. Tilting that. I don't think, and that game's going to go to overtime, I think. I don't think that it's necessarily wrong. You know what I mean? Like they should be played in the MVP spot at a really high rate. So probably for this slate would rather, maybe I'll mix in a few Tyreek lineups, but would rather differentiate in your flex spots. I think it's more likely you get something there to make you unique than it is to have the quarterbacks really fail.
I'm with you. I definitely want to shout out Cody Main's article over at ETR. One of these breakdowns that I'm definitely looking at before these type of single game slates, showdown slates. So one thing that I kind of am curious about, I won't give away everything in this article, Leone, but these charts that they have in here, basically looking at the distributions between some of the different players, basically the percentile outcomes, right? Like how would you go ahead and look at something like this? And is it applicable to FanDuel, or is this still mostly like a showdown thing on DraftKings?
Yeah, I mean, it's still applicable. You kind of want to see how players are distributed to kind of help you get a sense for where you can go contrarian, where you can get a ceiling performance from. Because I think a lot of times, like base projections, for example, on a different slate where you might fade quarterback, you look at these distributions and you see, okay, Patrick Mahomes has clearly a much higher projection and median outcome than his receivers. But then when you look at the 75th to 100th percentile outcomes, they start to get a little bit closer to him, and that's kind of important when you're deciding who that MVP is in particular. That ceiling really matters. Now, on a single game slate, dude, things can get crazy. Like, you don't necessarily need everybody hitting their ceiling because there's only one outcome is going to happen. It's not like a main slate where someone in some game somewhere is going to hit their ceiling. It's possible that like it's an ugly game and no one does. So you do want to keep that in mind, but I think that's more of like in your flex spots where you can kind of tell yourself like, oh, these kickers that don't have enough of a ceiling to be worth it MVP, maybe they can actually crack the flex lineup though.
For anyone coming over from Tilt Space, would love it if you would subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, all that good stuff. Doing a bunch of these types of shows throughout the entire week. Bunch of great guests. Nice to wrap up the week with Pete and Leone talking some Sunday night football. So I'll bring us back over to Run the Sims quickly here. And I do think that there's at least a couple options here. If we take MVP completely out of it, one of the things that I think is always interesting is we see a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 46% of the flex option. So it's probably a little bit to do with his price at 10.5, but that's a pretty big number. At least I haven't seen a ton of guys popping in the flex that much. But what I really like about Run the Sims, and Pete, jump in with whatever you want here, because I know you've jumped into some of this stuff with Freeman at some points, but these custom lineups like 65 frequency, I haven't seen one of those that high yet. But also I'm kind of using this to see what types of builds we're seeing most often. I'm seeing a lot of 4-1s in favor of Kansas City, which is something that I don't always try and do on these slates, but at least the Sims seem to be really heavily in favor of the Kansas City weapons so far. So I guess, how have you been approaching these? Have you been doing more tweaking on the inputs, Pete, or you kind of just been running the Sims and seeing what looks to be the more optimal types of plays?
Yeah, I don't get in the weeds adjusting, the market shares and kind of the micro inputs for the specific players, because I just think I'm way out in front of my skis when I'm doing that. But what I was looking at with Justin was just adjusting, the implied points. So basically it's preloaded with the Vegas implied total. So we have Chiefs at 28.8, the Baltimore Ravens at 25.3. So I'm going, what if we flip that? What if the Ravens win by 3 points? Well, I reran it and you do get slightly more Ravens heavy builds, but it's still incredibly quarterback heavy. So then you can kind of start to push things to the extreme. What if the Ravens win by 10? And then start to kind of figure out how that might change the lineup. So I like using it for idea generation. And then you can start to see some interesting things like when the Ravens win, Mecole Hardman and Tyreek Hill are showing up in a similar amount of flex spots in that case. And you're obviously getting a $6,000 discount on Mecole Hardman. Or you might see that Latavius Murray is showing up in flex slightly more than Tyson Williams, and he's at a $4,500 discount there. So I think there might be some exploitable things there where the field's going to gravitate to the more name brand, Hill over Hardman, Tyson over Latavius, and that's maybe where you can get unique if you don't want to fade the quarterbacks.
I like that. Well, let's build a lineup, guys. Let's jump right into it. I'll leave this up to you, Leone. Do we want to build like a quarterback captain, or do we want to get kind of weird with something kind of like Pete's talking about? Maybe we fade Tyreek completely and go with like the direct pivot. I'll leave it up to you. Do we want to do a quarterback captain here? Let's throw something in the large field stuff. Why not?
Yeah, I'm gonna play Lamar at MVP. Be a little bit boring, but if we do like a Tyreek fade,
I like the Tyreek fade. Let's do that.
Mahomes, yeah.
All right, so Lamar captain. Do we want to pair him with Marquise Brown with the injury concerns? Do we want to just see how many Chiefs we can get in with Lamar and just hope Lamar kind of has one of those games where it's really big on the ground, he runs one or two in? What are you guys' thoughts on that? It looks like, at least in terms of the value side of things, man.
I would say we still want to get at least one stack with Lamar. I think on FanDuel we can kind of take advantage of. I think either Andrews or Marquise Brown makes a lot of sense. Like if you run the Sims with the Ravens winning by 10 points, like in a blowout, Mark Andrews is showing up in almost 40%. So I don't know. I'd say we could toss Mark Andrews into this.
Yeah, Andrews is kind of like lapping at least Marquise Brown in the sim that I ran. Guess that was completely the stock one. So let's go with Andrews, and then let's go like some Chiefs on the other side of this. So if we didn't want to go Tyreek, if we get Kelsey, maybe we go Mecole. Let's see what that leaves us with, because I think we're still gonna have a decent amount of salary. Yeah, we can basically play at that point. We could play Marquise Brown. We could add in CEH, Tyson Williams. So I like the idea of fading Tyreek. But you guys think we should add something to our Lamar stack, or just add another KC player that I guess negatively correlates a little bit to Tyreek?
I will say, looking at the Sims with Lamar Jackson captain, if you're projecting the Ravens to win, and I know that's not what Vegas is doing, but we're trying to kind of find a unique angle. There's generally 3, maybe even 4 Ravens in this case. So I think the other thing we need to think about with FanDuel is just like, who is going to be our Galaxy brain pivot? Like, I'm seeing one of these lineups here has both Latavius Murray and Tyson Williams with a Lamar Jackson captain. So I think we might need to get funky to get unique.
Okay. We could leave a bunch of salary on the table and just completely fade Marquise Brown, Tyson, and just jam in like Sammy Watkins in our last spot, which is going to leave a ton of salary on the table. But any thoughts, Leone?
Yeah, I mean, is there any thought to doing like Mahomes with a really cheap pass catcher?
We could.
Or, no, like
a DeMarcus Robinson type?
Yeah, that's what I was looking like, DeMarcus, or
we'll see what happens.
you got to go DeMarcus. If you did Mahomes, DeMarcus, you've got 11K, so you can play Marquise with the double stack or like CEH.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't mind the CEH with that one either, just because then even like the 4-1 with Andrews on the other side, I think Andrews is one of those guys on Baltimore that could probably get there without Lamar hit his ceiling, without Marquise Brown hitting his ceiling. If Mark Andrews gets in the box, he's only 10K. He's actually not near as expensive as some of these other guys at the higher end of the price. Like, he's 4,000 less than Tyreek Hill. So let's go with that. That leaves 3,000 on the table. So if you really did want to, I guess, tweak this a little bit, I'll say this about FanDuel. I'm not trying to go anywhere near the salary cap, because there's going to be times, especially with a quarterback captain, I don't want to be duped with a lot of people. If you're anywhere near the cap with a quarterback captain, you're basically, I think, over the season, probably asking to not be profitable. So any final thoughts on this lineup, guys? And then we'll get you out of here.
No, I think it's solid. I think the one thing you have to think through, even when you're being contrarian, is like what's hard, with the structure. Like, you still need the really high scores. Like, what do like it's hard to phase out Mahomes just the way the salary structure works, even if you're not using him in captain or an MVP, just because, like, what are the chances he gets straight up outscored? I don't know. Yeah. It is tight enough that you don't have to play him for sure, but it's you really have to think it through.
Yeah, and it does seem like, jamming 4 studs and then getting really creative with the 5th is kind of the way to go to make sure you take advantage of the ceilings of those guys.
I'm with you guys. All right, let's continue to, I guess, work through this FanDuel single game slate stuff throughout the season. Obviously, if you're just watching this for the first time later on, check us out on the ETR channel, walking through our tilt, I guess, most weeks. A little bit less tilt this week, almost a nice little sweat, but 6 p.m. Eastern time on the Establish the Run channel. Definitely check out the article that goes up for the Showdown slates over there. Peter, at Peter Overzet on Twitter. Mike, tell people your Twitter handle, because I always say it probably wrong. It's 2 hats, 1 Mike, something weird like that.
Yep, you got it. At 2 hats, 1 Mike on Twitter.
Know Leone's Twitter handle by now, Joe?
I mean, I know it, but I feel like if I go like really hard on like the exacts on it, I'd probably just get it wrong. You guys are gonna make fun of me, so I'd rather just ask him what it is. So good stuff, guys. Appreciate you, everyone that's here. I do go live every Monday and Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time until about 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. So get you ready for Monday Night Football, get you ready for Thursday Night Football, and then on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Get you guys right up until about an hour before kickoff. So appreciate each and every one of you. Toss a like on this video, all that good stuff. We'll see you guys next time.